it comes to travel, I now realize that we have been doing it all wrong. If you don't have somebody in your life who can design a dream getaway for you like Shane Mahoney, you need to open your mind to the art of what is possible, not just what is on Priceline. Shane was so smart and so fun to talk to because he loves to travel and he loves to create the most memorable vacations for his clients because he knows that it matters to you, me, and all of us who wander around in the dark when it comes to vacation planning. We don't need another job. We need a break from our job. So listen and let him guide you toward the ultimate travel experience. And this podcast gets better and better, and it continues to unfold and reveal opportunities for travel that we never thought were affordable or even possible. It's attainable. It's worth it. So here it comes. Shane Mahoney, the man, the myth, the luxury lifestyle specialist. So what kind of old-fashioned did you end up with there?
A rye.
A rye?
Bullet rye.
Bullet rye. That's what Jared ordered last night too. It's very popular.
I've been on an old-fashioned kick for a hot minute, and I have several favorite variations that I'm particularly a fan of, but none so much as the vanilla old-fashioned.
I've never had a vanilla old-fashioned.
So most people have never heard of a thing called Liquor 43.
Never.
And it is a vanilla liquor. It's phenomenal as a mixer. I was a bartender at a real nice golf club for a little bit in college too. And so I got to play with a lot of really interesting alcohols and things. And so essentially Liquor 43 is vanilla. You throw it in with your old fashioned. It makes it a little sweet. It's like your sugar part, but it's so amazing.
That sounds like it would be good. So do you have like any kind of citrus in there still, or any cherry,
totally
or
normal,
you still got your cherry, but
totally normal,
just a vanilla flair,
but with a vanilla flair. Yeah,
wow.
Especially better if you can smoke it. That's optional.
Yeah, I've seen what they do with those smoked cocktails I've never had one though.
Never?
No.
Oh,
I've got a kit for it at home. I love smoking meat. Like I have the whole setup. You know, I'm not the guy that's going to die with the most tools. I'm the guy that's going to die with the most smokers. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because like that's one thing that happened to me during COVID is I finally had time to chill out, like we're doing here.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Time to chill out is essential.
It is essential. So I was able to learn how to smoke meat. Something that's a goal I've always wanted to do.
What I found interesting a couple years into my profession was that I come from a family of workaholics, and so the gene runs hard in me. Mm-hmm. And I realized something really profound. It took me a while though, and that is that ultimately I sell vacation and leisure time. And if I don't understand leisure or being able to take yourself out of that work mode, then I actually cannot produce as good a trip for you as what you would need or want. And so actually I've been cultivating over the last maybe 10 years more relaxation and time with the family and things, knowing that ultimately it actually makes me better at what I do versus just pressing on and being more workaholic.
That's an interesting dynamic. You have this interesting paradox because your job, your profession is to create like exquisite opportunities for entrepreneurs, for people. When I first saw it was my first time at BA. I saw your video that you had created, and just seeing you in all these phenomenal places, I just thought, wow. And then your knowledge of the travel industry is pretty legendary. And because you're the guy that knows how to assemble these vacations, not just for individuals, but for groups. So give us just tell us exactly what it is how you approach the travel industry for an entrepreneur.
I think central to everything is asking different questions.
Okay.
One of the things I talk about is like, I'm like deep into philosophy, right? And I think that a lot of people don't really think about philosophy enough, right? Because if you think of one thing that affects your mindset, how you approach everything, how you approach other people, how you approach your work, your play, your God, your anything, everything is your mindset and how you think, not what you think, but how. And so I just ask different questions, it's not a special skill, it's just cultivated differently. And it's born out of 45 years of just traveling around and seeing different cultures, people. I see so many undercurrents and tones in certain countries, certain places within those countries, and then just kind of apply other people's things and interests in innovative and different ways than what you might see or do.
So let's talk about some of those undertones. So give me an example of some undertones you've witnessed in a country.
You being like the average person might want to go on vacation somewhere.
Yep.
And you'll need a hotel. And so like what most people will do is they'll go into Google and they'll say like, I want a 4-star hotel in this area. And Google will give you like 215 listings. And all of them have reviews, and all of them are pretty good, and all of them are generally in the same area, and all of them generally have the same, amenities and everything else, right? So sorting is a problem. The thing about the internet that's beautiful is that we have an enormity of information. In that ecosystem, the real value is not in being able to find that things exist. It's being able to filter what exists with what you want. So I might ask you as a client certain questions that illuminate where I need to be focusing my attention.
What are some of those questions?
I mean, are you more of a beach person, or are you more of a city person? Are you more apt to be very busy? Are you more apt to have a nightlife? Do you like to just do things during the day? Are you interested in different experiences, or are you more like middle of the road, like you just want some kind of like what most people have had? These are like some of the questions. And then from that, I might say like, okay, well, we need to search for a hotel that has a rooftop pool, as opposed to one that, or for example, like today somebody was like, oh, they said that sometimes the room is too nice. And if it's too nice, they want to spend more time in the room as opposed to going out and exploring things, right?
Wow.
So I was like, okay, that's interesting.
What an interesting bit of data.
Right. But ultimately, then I hit back and I was like, okay, well, let's say, for example, you're in Cabo San Lucas, where you have this beautiful beachside hotel. But what you don't know about Cabo, or what most people don't know, is that you can't go in the water. You can't go in the ocean. The riptide is entirely too strong. So it makes sense to have a room that has a private pool that overlooks the ocean.
Nice.
Because now you can enjoy the water, you can enjoy the view, and you're not missing out on anything because of that. And he's like, oh yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I would want to stay in that room a little bit more. So think about it from the perspective of like what you want, what my clients want, and then immediately challenging them on their premonition of what they think they want. Because my thought process is most of the time that people have no idea what they actually want. This manifests itself in a lot of different ways, but like probably the most classic example I have is what I call the Corona effect.
Okay.
So we've all seen the Corona commercials, right?
Yes.
And you have like 2 chairs and the Corona,
couple
and the
of
lime,
limes, yeah,
and the shady like
some
palm
feet.
tree and
Yeah.
beautiful feet,
Yeah.
beautiful beach and
Yeah.
the ocean and the waves and stuff like that, right? And so like it's super common to fixate on that, right? And so client might come to me and say, I want to do St. Lucia for a week because that's their vision of what they want.
Okay.
my job is to say, do you really care if you're in St. Lucia, or do you want that same experience? Because it could be done in maybe 40 other places worldwide where you have that same vision, but it's carried out in different ways. And what happens before and after that vision is what I actually care about.
That's pretty cool. That reminds me of when I first started my real estate business. It was, 2008 hit right out of the gate. And so I was only in business for about 18 months when it hit, and I wasn't really prepared for that impact. So it caused me to start asking better questions for my clients. And so people came out of the woodwork saying, hey, I just want foreclosures. But in some cases, I knew clients that were barreling towards foreclosure or were covering a gap in expenses that were ready to dump the property for a deal or even bring cash to closing in some cases. And so I would ask people, I was like, is it a foreclosure what you really want, which comes with a lot of poorly winterized properties, vacant properties, vandalized properties, or is it just an opportunity that you're looking for?
I love it.
And so for me, that was my first major aha in real estate philosophy, which was, do you want an opportunity or do you want a deal? A lot of people hunt for deals, but people don't look for opportunities. And what I love about what you just said is like you're digging for finding the right opportunity for somebody, you know, because they think they know what they want, but really, and this is why I was so impressed, because I never met anybody that is a travel professional like yourself. So what title would you give yourself?
So I'm a luxury lifestyle specialist.
A luxury lifestyle specialist. I've never met anybody that does that. And I want to travel more after meeting you. And I want to travel even more now after hearing what you just said, because it seems like you sort of custom tailor experiences for people in some cases.
You know, so it's been an interesting evolution. If you're asking me like even 3 or even 2 years ago what I did, it was entirely custom. And what I've done is I've taken 12 years of, let me back up. Most people are different than other people, but in the ways that they're different, they're the same.
Interesting. Keep going. So
there's really only so many permutations of people in general, right?
Yes.
And so after I've done this for a while, what I realized is that a lot of people fall into certain buckets. And those buckets can be serviced in lots of different ways in lots of different places. If you're an action or an adrenaline junkie, there's a certain number of things that I can do in any given place. They're different things, but the net result is the same. You get the adrenaline response, you get your heart rate up, you're having something fun. What do I mean by that, right? So like if you're in Costa Rica, that could be ATVs, zip lines, scuba diving, stuff like that, right? Whitewater rafting. If you're in Italy, it might be driving a Ferrari on public Italian roads. If you're in Belgium, it might be flying in a P-51 Mustang over World War I battlefields, or flying in an actual Navy fighter jet. Like, how we service that is different, but the result is the same. Like, you being an action junkie in this particular case, would be looking for that experience in some different novel way.
Here's what I don't even understand. Like, I didn't even realize that menu of services existed. And I don't know how many people do.
Most of what I do is I had a lengthy discussion today with several people that were like, you can do what? And like, you know, talking about private jets, private homes, like some of the like one of the things that, like, I'll tell you something that like nobody knows about.
Yeah.
Okay. Most people love the idea of flying private, right? Private jets. What they don't realize is how incredibly expensive that is. So your average 2 or 3 hour private jet experience is going to be round trip 40 to 60 grand, right? So you're like, you can fly commercial and you can do it on basic economy for maybe $200. You could do it at economy for maybe $350. You can do it in business class for maybe $600. You can do it in first class for maybe like $900 or $1,000. Or you can do it private, and it's going to cost you anywhere from like $10,000 to $40,000. There's a big difference between those,
Huge
right?
gap, yeah.
So one of the things that's really interesting that people don't know about is a VIP airport experience on a commercial flight. So let's say, for example, you're flying to Europe, okay? Those numbers skew a little differently. Your economy is going to be $1,000. Your premium economy is going to be $1,800 to $2,300, and your business class is going to be like $4,500 to $6,000. If you do first, that's probably 12 to 15K, and if you did private, you're looking at 150 plus.
Wow.
Okay? But here's how we can give you a hybrid experience that's phenomenal at fractions of the cost. So when you fly private, some of the added perks are that you go into a private terminal when you show up at the airport. You have private TSA. You have no lines, 0 lines. You have a private lounge that's very plush and has alcohol and food and all these things, the amenities that make like life grand, right? Well, let's say, for example, you wanted to fly to Europe and you fly business class at like $4,500 to $6,000, but you'd like to have that VIP experience. Well, for a couple $100 extra at each airport, we can get you to come, your private driver will take you to the VIP terminal. You go through the VIP TSA, you go through the VIP lounge, and when your plane is ready, a private car picks you up, takes you directly to your plane, and before anybody else has boarded, you go up a private stairs straight up to the plane, the regular commercial jet that
This
everybody
exists
else
at hundreds of airports?
totally exists.
Wow.
Hundreds of airports.
Wow.
Okay? You get in and you're done. And when you arrive, you're first off the plane, you're greeted by somebody at the jetway right there. They take you down the stairs, back into a car, back to the private terminal. Wow. You go into private TSA where you just like sail right through. You get your bags. They're coordinating constantly with your driver who's going to pick you up as soon as you're done, and boom, you're out. You're the first off the plane. You're the first going through TSA. You're the first going through customs. You're the first doing everything, and all of that for a couple $100.
And so is this just for groups, or is it for individuals can do this too?
Yeah.
Wow. So do they need to book through somebody like you? I mean, how does somebody really find out about these sort of things? Like, how did you discover some of these things?
You know, the thing is, like, you could book it yourself.
Yeah.
But one of the big things I really key in on is like understanding the why.
Okay.
Okay. I've known you. You work hard, right?
Yeah.
You have a family. You work hard at your family. You work hard at your job.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to take a vacation?
Absolutely.
It's a rhetorical question.
Yes.
Right?
You don't. Yes.
Okay.
I'll answer it. Yes. 100
All right.
times.
So here's the thing. If you plan it yourself, it will take approximately 40 hours of your life, which is, by the way, another job.
Right.
Why did you want to take a vacation? You took a vacation, you wanted to take a vacation to take away your stress, to lighten your load, to bring new ideas into your head about what you do. If you go ahead and book it yourself and you do those 40 hours, didn't you just add yourself a second job? You're the CEO of now your second job, which is your entertainment and budget.
I feel like you're massaging my emotions right now. Like you're giving me the old deep tissue massage in my brain, because it's like you're absolutely 100% right. And now I never want to plan a vacation ever.
Well, let me ask you this. I've asked a lot of people this. Okay,
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, why would I hire a travel professional? Why would I why would you pay me to do your vacation? And it can sum it up in one sentence.
Okay.
Okay? If you're flying over to somewhere and just for some reason, the hotel that you booked or the Airbnb that you booked cancels your reservation. Maybe the hotel had a fire, or the Airbnb host's grandmother died and they need to host their family instead of you. Whatever, okay? This is totally normal stuff that happens all the time, all around the world. But you're flying over there, so you're in the plane, you're going to land, and your expectation, because you booked everything, is that you're going to get in a car of some kind and you're going to show up at a place and you're good. If this happens and you find out, raise your hand if you'd like to be the one working on this emergency during your vacation.
No, sir.
Okay. So understanding the realities of a vacation. A vacation is to take away your stress.
Right.
So don't plan it yourself. If you have an emergency and you don't want to be working during your vacation, have somebody else plan it, because they can fix the things that are happening before you've even understood that there's a problem. Okay? And then the third thing that I say is this. A lot of people want to book their own vacation because it saves them money. And this is, Jeremy, the best tip I can give you. If you want to save the most amount of money on any vacation anywhere in the world, do you know what you need to do?
No.
Not take a vacation. As soon as you understand that taking a vacation is not about saving money, it's about the exact opposite.
Right.
It's about having an experience.
Yeah, right.
And so now the question is what kind of experience are you going to have? It's not a question of whether it's going to cost you money. It's not a question of how much it's going to cost you. It's a question of what is your experience going to be like? Is it going to be restorative, interesting, different, informative? Is it going to be educational? Is it going to be fun, relaxing? Those are all questions that you, as the buyer, get to answer with who and how it's booked.
It's about deploying the resources we've worked so hard for in the most economical way to get the best benefit. And what I love about it is that you've traveled a lot.
Some.
And more than most. And you've got a depth of experience that most people just don't have. And so, like, one of the things I want to kind of get at is, there's been so much technology surrounding trying to eliminate real estate agents from the planet.
Sure.
You've got Zillow and Redfin and all these big venture capital, private equity funded companies that are designed to create tech that will eliminate a real estate agent, and it hasn't happened yet. In fact, Zillow has switched over to a brokerage model.
Okay.
So the only thing Zillow did was interrupt the process of somebody who needs real estate information getting it from a professional. They went to a third-party tech company, which then sold those leads to a real estate professional.
Totally.
So, hey, great business model. It worked. I mean, if they can do it, they did it, and it worked. It seemed like the same thing happened with travel agents in the past.
To a degree.
Because I really don't hear of like travel agents anymore.
There's a lot of them.
Are there?
Okay, there's a ton of them, but here's what you need to know about the travel industry as a whole.
Okay.
Okay. You got to go back like 20-ish years,
okay,
right? So you go back like 20 years, and what you realize is that the system was built over, let's say, the last 80 or 100 years in a very specific way, which is that travel professionals were the gatekeepers of information.
Okay.
You wouldn't even know what hotels existed in the cities that you had before the internet. You didn't know who the guides were, you didn't have any of this information. So you used to have a travel professional just to be able to do anything like this.
Okay.
So then the internet comes out, right? And at first, it was hotels putting up their own websites and guides putting up their own websites and all this other stuff. And so what ended up happening is the travel industry 20-ish plus years ago had brochures that you would get information from to make your decision on. When the internet happened, we had dichotomous system. People who wanted to book their own things had too much information, okay? Information was plentiful, and therefore it was valueless, okay? Too much information is valueless. The value is now in sorting information. What's important, what's not.
Gotcha.
So travel agents became a little less important, but also pretty important because they could sort through the data to be able to find you the right thing. But ultimately, what I look at in my business is that the system was a brochure, and when the internet came out for travel professionals, it became an online brochure. Nothing changed, right? So over the last 20 years, we've developed tools and all kinds of interesting tech to solve all the problems in lots of different industries, but it was never applied in the travel industry. It's a legacy system that has changed very, very little.
Oh my gosh.
Okay?
Keep going.
So here's the thing, is where are the real innovations in this? And so to dig down into this, you have to understand what actually is to see where actually things are going, okay? So what's the real process of booking travel? For me, it starts way before you call a travel professional, okay? For me, I look at the average American family and I see a very distinct arc. Thanksgiving and Christmas, you spend a lot of time at the end of the year with your family. And you realize two things. One, you probably had a pretty good year. And two, you probably didn't spend as much time with your family as you really wish you had. Okay? And so what most people do is on either a conscious or subconscious level, they resolve to spend more time in the next year with their family. We're going to take a family vacation. We're going to do something cool. We're going to go out and we're going to explore, right? And everybody's like, yeah, Dad, that's awesome, right? But reality sets in really fast on January 3rd when we all go back to work and you're like, oh my God, I'm inundated with the stress of what I do. And nothing happens for approximately 2 to 3 months. If you have a family, it usually is a moment of awakening about 2 weeks or 3 weeks before spring break. And two things happen. You realize, oh my gosh, I don't have a spring break plan.
Right.
What are we going to do?
Panic.
And
Which is the opposite of what you want.
The opposite. And then the second realization is, we were going to take a summer vacation and we have made no plans for that.
Right.
And acutely, at a basic level, you become aware that flights have just gotten more expensive because time has gone by.
Right.
Hotels are more booked. Guides are more booked. All these things are happening in real time, and your stress goes from nothing, because you weren't even thinking about it, to here.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, let's talk about the actual process of working with a travel professional.
Before that, though, in addition to your stress level being up, now you've got to go spend 40 hours, which you don't have time to do.
If you're going to do it yourself.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But if you're going to do it with a travel professional, here's what the actual boots on the ground looks like. Okay? Every single website for a travel professional is exactly the same. You have a form that you fill out that says, I'm interested in buying travel. I don't know about you, but I hate those forms. But there's no other way. So you fill out that form.
Yeah.
And sometime in the next week, somebody professional calls you up and sets up a meeting. And during that meeting, it goes for about 30 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on the person and what their level of expertise is. You, as a client, are going to share an enormous amount of personal information with somebody you've never met before about you and your family and what you want to do and how much you want to spend and where you want to go and when you want to go there and all that stuff, okay? It's an enormous investment from you. And at the end of that, the travel professional is going to take 3 to 5 business days to get you one proposal. If you're like most people and you're like, I don't know if I want to do the Amalfi Coast or if I want to do Venice, they're going to tell you, no, you can't have 2 proposals, you can have one. Let's figure out which one you want, okay? So 3 to 5 days go by after these months-long slog of stress, and you love the proposal. It's 85% of everything you wanted it to be.
Yep.
But inevitably, because I did the same thing, it was never, ever perfect. So you, as a client, you ask for one change, or maybe 2 changes, or maybe 5 changes. It doesn't matter. But if you make so much as one change to the dates, the hotels, the tours, any change, it's another 3 to 5 days to get one more revision.
Wow.
Okay? This process rinses and repeats for, on average, at least 3 weeks.
Meanwhile, the clock's ticking.
And your stress level was here, and now it's here, 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 and here. And this is where the American family does what most people would do in this situation. When you get stressed, you will take a bad plan over no plan.
Absolutely.
And that's where people will do cruises or they do vacations they've already done before.
Yep.
Okay? It is the one stop, easy, I'm done planning this vacation, it's finished, let's get ready to go.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully everything will go okay.
Hopefully everything is great.
Yeah.
But you know what I don't have to stress about? Making a plan.
Or making a decision of something.
Or making a decision.
Yeah.
Right? So at this point, you have now reached the zenith of your stress. You'll do anything to get rid of it. And that is usually not in your best interest.
Not to mention the fact that you've deployed your hard-earned capital in the wrong direction.
100%.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I focused on over the last 2 years is how can we actually leverage the tools that exist in the internet age to be able to provide real-world answers to people who are in this situation. And I don't think it's a small amount of people. I think it's an enormous amount of people.
It is.
Okay? And so what we have designed from literally nothing is you can go on our website, you can pick any of 66 tours in 20 countries, and you can get a custom proposal without having a single phone call in less than 10 minutes. And you can customize it yourself in your own home with your loved ones in any way that you wish. You know exactly how much it is at the end, and if you're cool with it, you can approve that, and then you tell us when you want to go. And we don't care if it's a Tuesday in July or a Thursday in September. It does not matter to us at all. It could be the Holy Week. It could be the week between Christmas and New Year's. I don't care. What I care about more than anything else is that how can we take this stress off your plate? How can we give you an amazing, if not exceptional experience, and do it seamless? And when our clients say yes to our proposals, the only thing they need to do is be at their own front door when I tell them to be ready, and a private car will pick them up, take them to the airport, and everything else will be absolutely taken care of, start to finish, until you go back to your house.
So you've started us on a journey. So take us through this journey now. Okay. So assuming this happens, and now we're in a private car, and we show up at the private terminal, and we get first on the airport, and
Absolutely.
We're going, where are we going? Where are we going?
Anywhere you want.
Well, you pick. Where are we going? What's the
Greece.
Greece. Okay, we're going to Greece. So what happens when we get off the plane, we're first off the plane, then what?
Private car picks you up, takes you to your hotel.
Okay.
You're immediately checked in.
Did I know I was going to this hotel, or did you pick it for me? Did you give me some kind of information?
We pick everything for you.
Did you give me? Did you say, hey, you're staying at this hotel, or do we just?
We absolutely. So we provide an app that has 100% of the information. Okay. So not only I'm personally like a different type of traveler. So I catered things to people just like me.
Okay.
And I catered things to people who want to have more things planned.
Okay. When you say just like me, what do you mean?
Great refinement, right? So what I love most about travel is a little bit of serendipity.
Okay.
What's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the greatest things that happened to me was on a trip to Amsterdam. I was just walking down the street and I saw a poster for a band called the Beastie Boys playing at the Heineken Music Center in Amsterdam 3 days later, and I was going to be there. And I was like, well, I know what I'm doing. Okay?
Yeah.
So for me, I like to have a loose plan where I can sort of figure things out. Now, I'm not like most people, but I like that I've been able to cater to that exact kind of thing. So we provide what we call the essential tour structure. And I wanted to design it from the ground up, from the perspective of whether it was your first time in that country or your 5th time in the country, what are the minimum amount of things that you need to have to make sure you're okay? Not just okay, but like okay, right? And so we include private English-speaking transportation with standard gratuity included anytime you have your luggage. So if you're transferring from a hotel to a train station or to an airport or whatever,
you don't have to worry about tips and all that.
You don't have to do any of that.
Hey, this is a thing. Like, I usually don't have any 1s or 5s, and
No.
I got my wallet lined out with like $3 folded up together, $5, you know.
What we take care of is standard gratuity. What
Okay.
we don't take care of is porterage. So if
Gotcha.
they help you with the bags, and by the way, we encourage and
course.
train our drivers to take care of the bags.
Okay.
You're looking at $2 to $5,
Yeah.
give or take,
Okay.
right? So it's not exorbitant, but we've taken care of a lot of the predictable gratuities.
Okay.
We include 4-star and up hotels.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that I realized was that as it comes to hotels, the standard room, the base entry room, is usually terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we do a minimum 1 category room upgrade.
Okay.
Okay, so you're going to start off in a superior or deluxe room, which allows us as the operator to be able to get you into a room with a view.
Yeah.
Or at least a little bit
You
more
ought to
of
have
room.
it. You ought to pay more for that. You're on vacation anyway. You're not
Well-
going on vacation to really save money, and you're not going to, blow your entire budget if you're going on one vacation. So you might as well have some memories worth repeating here.
Well, like one of the most common things that happened early on was that people were like, the hotel doesn't have to be that important, not that big a deal. I'm just going to be sleeping there. That's like
False.
the most common thing I've heard.
Wow.
Okay. So here's the thing. It's not entirely false, but it's the last thing you see before you go to bed. It's the first thing you see in the morning. It's what sets every single day into motion and what ends every day as the nightcap.
That's so
Okay.
beautiful, because that's how you're going to start the day in that state. If that hotel isn't, it doesn't have to be grand, but it has to be clean, classy. One of the things that I really discovered as I was diving deep into the short-term rental world is that cleanliness can be wow factor. And so I was on a quest for wow factor in the short-term rental world, and in fact trained agents and investors a long time ago to have some kind of wow factor, whether it's
You have to.
knotty pine ceilings or some grand view or your own theming. And we found that cleanliness can be a wow factor. People will return to your place because it's clean.
Totally true. 100% true.
Yeah.
So we start off with a basic of like, hey, we're going to give you a nice room. It's not necessarily the fanciest room in the hotel, but we offer upgrade options. That's later.
Love it.
Okay. So we start you off somewhere decent. Now, also included in the essential tour after the transportation in the hotel is a welcome dinner. So we have a dinner set up for you the first night you're going to be there.
Because now, instead of traveling and having to spend more time looking up on apps and reviews on where to eat dinner, you just handle that for us.
Think about your stress.
Dude, this
right?
is amazing.
Like, you show up, you're in a new country, you don't speak the language, you don't know where things are.
Right.
And all you want to have is a decent meal. So we don't set you up with like a Michelin star dining experience that night. It's just a good local experience that's walking distance from your hotel.
I got to tell you a quick story here, which falls right in line with this, and my son will never live this down.
Yeah, I love this.
So we went to Kodiak, Alaska for for Memorial Day, where they do their it's like a crab festival there, and so the whole town gets together on this island, and they have it's like a town fair.
Sure.
But there's not a whole lot on Kodiak. I mean, there's a Walmart and there's a hospital. It's got a lot of services, but it's all in one really little town. The rest of the island is for the most part rural and wilderness, in large part. So my family goes there because we're looking at lots to purchase, because I want to build a home on Alaska. It's where I want to live someday. It's where I want to retire to. That's the experience I want. And we show up and we don't know where to eat. And traveling from Branson, Missouri to Alaska on 3 planes. It takes all day.
Yeah.
And plus you're going back in time, so it's daylight when you get there.
Yep.
And then, hours go by. So it's like we're living 2 days and we're starving to death. The first thing we do is we pull into this little roadside cantina. And when we walk in, it's like the wind blew in with us, and the swinging doors came open, and everybody that's never seen anybody is in like a Clint Eastwood movie looking over like, yes. And we're standing there like,
y'all serve food?
Yes. We just wanted something to eat.
Yeah.
And it was uncomfortable. And we were starving. And so the waitress comes over, and it was all just awkward. The waitress comes over and gives everybody a little bit of water or something while we're waiting to see their menu. And my son, who was old enough to not do this, knocks his glass over and spills, it was like Dr. Pepper or something, all over the place. So now we're that family.
Yeah.
Like we came in wearing, denim and, all these Missouri clothes, not appropriate for Alaska weather. And what's interesting though, is then that's when the tension broke in the room. And instead of being outsiders, everybody in the restaurant like rushed to help us.
No, nice.
And so everybody was kind of cleaning it up. And from that point on, everybody kind of saw us as this sort of wayward family that was just looking for a burger,
Yeah.
But the first meal upon arrival was the most stressful moment we had on the entire
100%.
trip. The fact that you know that and that you cater to it tells me you know what you're doing and you care about
what
your
I
clients.
wanted to do ultimately, full stop, was find where your stresses are, solve those problems, and leave space for you to be able to find your experience.
I feel so cared for right now, and I haven't even used your services.
So I'm not even done yet. This is just
Can't wait.
This is the base level of service that we do.
Okay, bring it on. Bring it on.
After the welcome dinner, we include a farewell dinner, so that also your last night you're not having to figure out where to be. Then we include breakfast every day, because the last thing you want to do is forage for your breakfast. Okay, so we include that at the hotel. And then lastly, as part of this system, we include one privately guided tour in each city that you visit, and we include skip the line access wherever it's available, so that ultimately you are not waiting in any lines and you go straight into what you wanted to do and you get right into it.
Wow.
Okay, now privately guided tours allow you to focus on the experience and your time. I think most people have had a group tour, right? Like if you imagine, like I was just in Boston, we did the duck tour, right? And it was like, we're in the duck boat, and it was, it was hokey and fun, and the guy was hilarious, and cracking jokes and telling us like all kinds of stuff about the history and stuff. But ultimately, group tours are like a Disney ride. It's on rails. If you love what you're seeing, you don't get to have more of it.
Yeah.
If you hate what you're seeing, you don't get to quit.
Right.
So you're stuck.
The cafeteria.
Right. You're stuck on this thing. Privately guided tours is an entirely different experience that a lot of people don't really understand. And it's a question of, if you have 50 weeks a year that you work and 2 weeks that you're off, then 30 to 50 weeks have been in anticipation of this trip. Do you really want to stay in a line for 2 hours at the Vatican waiting to get in and then spend 4 to 5 hours going through? Or would you rather have 1 hour early access before anybody else has access?
Wow.
You're in there with like handfuls of people.
I didn't know any of this existed even.
And you go through most of the stuff with almost nobody.
Shane, this makes me want to travel more, because a lot of times I just want to avoid crowds anyway. I want
100%.
that personal, easy breathing experience. I'm slightly introverted anyway.
Why would you want that?
Yeah.
And
another thing, you said that 30 some odd weeks of the year somebody is anticipating this. Most of the time, They're not. They're anticipating the dream of this, but what they get is what they normally experience, which you described earlier. Right. But if I knew I was going to have this vacation, I would get up every day and work my ass off because I knew that this was going to be coming for me and my family. This is what I would anticipate.
I get tingles talking about this stuff because, like, for me, I get to see what my clients are going to do, how they're going to feel, when they're going to smile, and I get to experience that months before you ever even go. Like, I know this is silly, but like, I have literally watched my clock knowing that I was gonna get a text from a client at a specific time because of something that I set up 3 months ago.
Wow.
Like, at 4:15, they're gonna be impressed.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's the difference between somebody who's making an experience for you and somebody who's doing it themselves will never, ever do that. Because ultimately, when you do it yourself, name me one person who doesn't pinch a penny somewhere.
Yeah.
And as soon as you've done that, you've taken yourself out of having the best experience and you've said, I want to save the most money, which now, again, we just covered, is antithetical to the vacation to begin with. So you've started getting in your own way of having a good time.
So somebody listening to this might say, yeah, guys, like this is fine, but you know, I'm middle class, I'm upper middle class, maybe I'm not even an entrepreneur yet or whatever. Like cost-wise, to have all of this extra luxury attention.
Sure, what does that cost?
I mean, you don't have to really say what it costs, but help us understand the price difference between all like these extras and not having the extras, or like having these things. Just give us kind of a simple way to understand how much more we might pay for our vacation. Maybe it's 1%, maybe it's
mediocrity is cheap. Okay?
Yeah.
There's a ton of ways that you could go to Italy for $3,000.
Okay.
You're going to be on a bus with 40 people. You're going to be shepherded through museums ultra fast. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a very homogenous experience. Nothing's going to be personal. You know what you're going to remember 6 months later on that type of trip? You're going to remember that jerk off from some other state who was touching the art when they told him not to touch it.
Right.
Who was loud and asking ridiculous questions. You're going to remember that experience over what you did. So it's a question of what you really value. If only thing you value is money, then take that cheap tour, okay? But if you really value having a life experience, then understand that like everything else, it comes at a cost. Now, like, there's a market for Kias and there's a market for Porsches.
Right.
Okay? What is that realistic difference between the two? You can't tell until you get behind the wheel of both.
Right.
Okay? Now, that being said, what does that really look like? It depends is the answer, which is shitty, but I get it.
No, you're right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, I would say that as a very general rule, we look at, in an industry standard like way of talking about it, I would say we don't do really anything less than $500 per person per day.
Okay. That's a good benchmark.
On an average, we're at about $800 to $1,000 per person per day. And depending on the options that you pick, it could be more than that. Okay.
Gotcha.
So, for example, there are a lot of ways to go to Belgium and spend really low money. But we have 8-day tours in Belgium that are starting at $7,500 for 2 people for a week, which is not crazy money. That's for the base essential tour package, which is phenomenal, by the way. Okay, I would literally tell anybody that if that's all you do, it's great. Okay, there's no reason that you need to take our enhancements. But if you want to fly in a Navy jet, that experience is going to cost you 10 grand for that alone.
Wow. But that's something you'll have your entire life.
I mean,
yeah.
Like that is by far the most expensive one single option that we have across the board. Okay.
Where I live, just 2 hours away, you can go shoot a red stag for $7,000, a guided hunting tour.
Yeah.
Red stags are magnificent creatures. And as you drive up to the lodge, the private lodge with a private lake, you see red stag bounding across the road because they're in this, 2,000 acre, preserve.
Preserve, yeah.
We stayed, we didn't do the hunt, but we stayed at this place in an off season one time. And that experience alone changed our lives completely. Because from that moment on, I decided I want to own my own private acreage and my own private lake with a lodge on it. And so I began looking for it, and we found it and found some business partners, and we have it. Now, the red stag don't exist yet there, but there's plenty of whitetail. I shot my first deer there. I didn't realize I liked hunting.
I've never done it.
I'm an urban guy. My dad never really hunted growing up, so I never really did those things. I liked camping. I liked being outdoors, but stories about people hunting were always like, yeah, it's November, we're cold, we're staying in a pop-up tent, and we shot this deer and we got to drag it out of the woods and it's all this. Well, I woke up one morning in deer season and one of my best buddies was there with me in the dark, sipping a little coffee in anticipation of watching the sunrise in the woods by ourselves. A dusting of snow had happened the night before, and we walked quietly up the hill into the deer stand, got up in the deer stand, and just sat there and watched the sunrise and waited in anticipation for what if. And I had been praying to God to be able to harvest the best from the land. And we waited about 30 minutes, and this doe comes running in, and this beautiful buck, and it went and it stood between these two trees, and I put up my gun in my sights, and I knew I was trying to aim for the kill zone, because I didn't want my first hunting experience to be this long drawn out process of trying to go track a deer and find that. And I was also praying for a clean, humane kill.
Well played.
And that's exactly what I got. Dropped it right there. And for me, it was, a lot of people, they have what's called like buck fever, it's called in Missouri. It's this thrill that you get for shooting a deer, and I didn't get that at all. I felt sad, to be honest with you, because here was this beautiful creature that was, alive and mating and at the peak of its strength. And I also had taken the Missouri Hunters course, which realized that these deer have no apex predators anymore and are getting overpopulated and they're getting diseased. And so we, as the apex predator of the land, have to harvest from the land. And so my philosophies changed there. And then, of course, I got my four-wheeler. I drove it up there, and I, got it down, and we processed it and everything. But I walked up to that deer, after an appropriate length of safe time, and I put my hand on that deer, and it was, still warm. And I almost, this sounds kind of weird, but I had this almost Native American experience where I felt like maybe it was like that. I just put my hand on the deer, and I committed to the things that I'm going to do in my life to honor the life that I took and the nourishment that my family and I are going to be able to have. And that deer meat is still in my freezer, and we're eating it. But that experience, that very concierge level experience of hunting, I didn't realize that I never went hunting because I didn't want to do it in a tent in cold November. But having the experience in my own place, on my own mattress, with my best bud who guided me through the entire process, is something I will never, ever forget. And I'm not the kind of guy that's going to go shoot a deer every year. But when my freezer is empty, I'll go harvest from the land. And it's that kind of experience that gives me joy to talk about it, to teach my children, to want to do it more often. And I feel like that's kind of what you're talking about. If we had the joy that came out of these vacations that you're talking about, if we invest a little bit more, it might just enhance the other parts of our lives. I got to ask you, like, did you travel a lot growing up, or did you not travel a lot? What got you interested in travel? What's your arc? Get us to this point where you're this travel professional.
It's an interesting arc. So my mom is from Paris, France, not Texas. My dad is fourth generation Floridian. I'm fifth generation Floridian. My son's sixth. Okay. And so they met at the Breakers Hotel in West Palm Beach. Do you know it?
No.
Okay. Very famous hotel. Very hoity-toity, very, very big time.
Awesome. They met there, huh?
They met there. They both worked there.
Was someone ordering an old fashioned?
I wish.
I bet
my
they
dad
were.
My dad was a waiter. My mom was like, I think she was the not the concierge, but like the head host or something like that. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, my mom would never date my dad because they worked together. She's high morals. So my dad quit his job, got a job in the oil fields. This is the 70s. And so he went to Tehran, Iran, for training. My mom finally been like able to date this guy, got a promotion in the hotel group to anywhere she wanted to be. And so she chose to be in Tehran, Iran, so that she could be with this guy, my dad.
Nice.
And so when she shows up, they link up, and she finds out that he is shipping out in 3 days. So in 3 days, they got engaged and married.
Oh, wow.
And like that sense of adventure, I guess, has permeated most of my life. I grew up, I was almost born in Iran. My mom took like a third trimester flight, which they would never let happen anymore, like to be back in Florida so that I could be born. We lived for a year in Borneo. We lived for 3 years in Perth, Australia. And then by like weird happenstance, we ended up in this town called Lakeland, Florida, in the middle of Florida, 30 minutes from Disney, in between Tampa and Orlando. And my parents were like, my brother and I were like in school, and they were like, we don't want to move anymore, so we're just going to stay put. And so, like I had never lived anywhere in my life longer than 3 years. By the time I was 8 years old,
wow.
I'd been around the world 4.5 times, like physically, like actually.
Wow.
And I had a wicked Australian accent.
You did?
Oh, wicked.
That's great.
And the bug was set. I remember we lived in Lakeland for 3 years, and we called like a family meeting, and we were like, so like, where are we moving to? Because like,
it's time to move.
It's time to go.
Wow. Did your parents, was it job related, or did they just love to explore?
It was job related, but like at the time, they were trying to plant more roots, and so we stayed put, much to my chagrin at the time. And that continued until my senior year of high school, when I was an exchange student in Barcelona for six months. And then I got my first job, and I took vacations in Russia and Amsterdam.
Wow.
And, like I just wanted to get out and do stuff. But through 12 years of my career, I just had like normal corporate America type jobs in sales and finance. And over 12 years, I just basically excelled at really just making money. I mean, that's essentially what I did. I wasn't really in love with what I did. I did it for the mortgage,
Gotcha. Was that a travel industry thing?
No.
Something
Sales
totally
and
different.
finance for car, houses,
Gotcha.
construction, various different things.
Sure.
And so at 34 years old, I had just become completely disillusioned with life. Like I was just like, I hate what I do. Like, it's not that I'm not good at it. I'm just like, what am I doing this for?
Yeah, for
right? Like,
a means to an end,
yeah,
not
like,
for a purpose.
Well, you know what it is like, I was working for the weekend, you know? Like, and I think
Everybody's working for the weekend.
You know, it's not untrue, but when you really break it down, like, are you living up to the potential that you have? Like, for me, the answer was no. So I had just an absolutely terrible plan.
Wow.
And my plan was to sell everything I owned, to move to the French Alps with no job, and to become a ski instructor.
Wow. But at least that's sort of purposeful and directed.
Well, I
you had
never
a vision.
asked myself what I really wanted to do with my life.
So
I wasn't very practiced at being able to answer that question.
It was like a retreat almost to like a place where you, almost like what would you, like a dream
safe
state?
haven.
Yeah, like a safe.
Like, I like to ski. Let me just go do this thing for 1 or 2 or 3 years, and I'll figure some shit out.
I think that's what I did with my career initially, like in college. That's how I chose my major.
Yeah, I mean, like, I chose
philosophy.
my first major because I liked playing with Legos.
Yeah.
And I thought I would love being an engineer.
Yeah.
You know, and then it turns out, like, I took, microeconomics, and I was like, I like business. Like,
Yeah.
this is more my thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I graduated with an international marketing degree, and then proceeded to literally spend 12 years never doing anything even close to that.
Wow.
So I had reached a point of frustration in my life that I just did not care what I really did, as long as I wasn't doing what I had been doing.
Right.
Like, I needed a distinct break.
You needed a bucket of cold water tossed in your face for a minute.
100%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, my family was not super happy with this plan, but they were also supportive, which is an interesting balance to have.
Yeah, for sure.
And so my mom saw this article in France Magazine about a guy who had a 20-year real estate agency in Colorado. He probably reached the same point in his life that I felt like I had been. He sold everything, moved to France, and started a ski school. And I was like,
my man.
Done. I was like, I will be literally the worst salesperson on the planet if I cannot get a job with this guy.
Yeah.
So I wrote him a really long email, like, explaining that I was in the same spot, having read his article that he must have been, and like, hey, why don't you hire me? I will be out there in 3 weeks. Like, let's get it. Let's do it.
Let's do this.
Right? And he was super gracious. He's like, let's talk. So we talked for 4 hours the next day.
Wow.
And it was that, like, life-defining moment where I realized a number of things. One, he was like, short answer, TLDR, right? He was like, don't be a ski instructor.
What a guy. Okay.
So,
keep going. This is brilliant.
He goes, don't be a ski instructor. He's like, you don't understand. It's like college over here. He's like, it's a 5-year degree. He's like, it's $40,000. I was 34 years old. I was a little old to be undertaking a 5-year program to get into this. I just wanted to get into it.
Had you sold everything at this point?
Had I what?
Had you kind of sold everything?
I was pretty close, but no,
yeah.
I hadn't
Okay.
yet. I'd sold some stuff.
Okay.
And so, like, he goes, you know what? He's like, you sound like you should be a tour operator. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, what is a tour operator? And that ultimately is one of the biggest questions that I've run into in my life, is most people associate travel agents, but they have no idea what a tour operator is. And
I don't, yeah.
I'm going to assume that you and neither of your listeners do.
Yeah.
Okay. So a travel agent is a go-between between people who want tours and tour operators who make tours.
Okay.
Tour operators are the ones who put all the stuff together, the package. The what you do, the where you go, the where you stay, like all of that stuff is done by a tour operator. And so when I really started to dig into the nuts and bolts of this industry, like right in the beginning, because after that phone call, I spent a month just researching. I was like, okay, let's figure out what this is. Like, is this something that I really want to do? And what I realized was that there's a fundamental flaw in the travel industry, which is you as a client might call a travel agent and you might ask for, I don't know, where do you want to go? Where do you and your wife want to go?
We want to go to Italy.
You want to go to Italy?
Yeah.
Phenomenal choice, okay? So you say, I want to take 10 days or 12 days or 9 days or whatever, and we want to go to Italy, right? And so you tell this travel agent all this stuff about like what your dreams are. You tell me the Corona dream of what you want.
Sounds beautiful.
Okay? Travel agent does not work for you because you don't pay them. They make a commission, and because they make a commission from the tour operators that provide the tours, they're going to go out and find tour operators that find close to what you want
and pay the highest commission.
And the only thing you as the client are going to be presented with is that one thing that they think is the greatest thing for you to do.
Wow.
But it's not the greatest thing for you to do. It's the greatest thing for them to sell you.
Wow.
And that is where I was like, this is a break. Because ultimately, I looked at myself as a CPA or an attorney or a valued professional that has industry knowledge about what I do.
Yeah, an advocate.
And cares about what you are going to do. I understand at a fundamental level that any vacation anywhere for any length of time has the potential to change your life forever. Your family's life, to connect you and your wife, or you and your kids, or all of you together as a family unit for decades to come, and to provide a touch point for you to have a relationship with each other centered around the experience you had on vacation.
Do you remember any Christmas present you got when you were 14 years old?
I actually do. That is the most
you would. You're
interesting
so,
freaking
you're so
question
freaking smart.
I've never been asked before, you son of a gun. I remember growing up in pretty middle class, you could almost say poor family. Looking back, there were things that I didn't know that was happening that were happening. And, and we were in various states of like not making it and making it, like whatever. And I remember being that absolute, I guess, prick of a kid who was like really an audiophile. I've always been my whole life. And I was like, I want this stereo, the boom box, right? Like, it was like.
No wonder you and Chris get along so well. He's an audio
and
engineer.
Shane and Lorenz too. Like, total. Fun fact, I took a student loan in college that I got my parents to co-sign on just so I could buy a stereo system. They don't know that, but that totally happened. And so I pined for this, legitimate boombox, like great stereo system. And I got like a wreck of a like Eckerd's pharmacy like piece of POS like system that was just like, and it was the ultimate disappointment. Like it was I wanted nothing but the one thing, and I got like all these presents that I didn't care about, and I could have just cared about the one thing. You know what I mean? So I actually do remember that. Dang you for bringing that back up.
Well,
thanks so much. I was so happy with my childhood until just now.
You screwed up my questioning too, because the whole point was most people can't remember what they got when they were 12 or 13 or 14 or 8 for Christmas, but they remember those special vacations they took. And another thing that this hit me when I was in my 30s. And so whenever you go to a funeral and you see people you haven't seen in a long time, and they look at you and you're like, wow, you're different, or what's going on with you, or your kids are so big. Or you go to a wedding and you see people you haven't seen in a long time, and they're like, wow, you look different, or what's going on, and wow, your kids are so big. Weddings and funerals mark time in our memories.
It's true.
And so therefore we intentionally see people to travel for moments that are meaningful. True. Weddings and funerals are meaningful. We celebrate these benchmarks in our lives, but we don't celebrate every year. We don't celebrate our time as a family of getting through COVID, surviving COVID changed travel forever. I mean, surviving COVID made people realize that, one, we were selected to stay on the planet, and we also will never, ever miss the opportunity to travel with our people ever again. So let's not forget.
I hope that people learn that lesson.
I hope so too.
I think they did, because I mean the visuals of you standing behind windows to say goodbye to your grandpa and grandma was like a very powerful reminder of how little time we actually have. You know what, the single thing that like absolutely wrecked me, I mean, it messed me up for a while, was I was 42 years old and somebody said, how old are you? And I go, 42. And they're like, you know what? You have about 30 summers left.
Oh my God.
Your reaction is my reaction.
Yeah.
And when you put it that way, and you're like, 30 summers. There was a really interesting book that I was recently recommended called 18 Summers. And if you're a parent, you realize at an acute level, you have 18 summers. 18, that's it. You have 18 summers to form a bond, to be able to create memories.
Do that thing you've never got a chance to do.
To do that, or to set like a standard in their life that they will live up to for the rest of their life. To like show them how other cultures live. One of the people in this room was just taking their kids to Tanzania. And they realized that, I mean, they're an incredibly privileged kids, right? They have video game consoles and all the stuff that like these African kids like have no concept of being. They live in huts. They don't have running water. They pee in holes in the ground, like that were probably dug like 3 days ago.
Wow.
And like stuff like that. And being able to see and really experience and understand at a foundational level what it is to be hungry or to be needy or to be wanting but here's the real thing, but to have those things in your life and be happy to see that in a real other culture, like real happiness with nothing, is a gift that you can pass to your family and your kids that will last them their entire life. And you have that choice to do that, or you could go on a cruise from the Royal Caribbean.
So you don't have to fight for your right to party anymore.
I wish I still had a drink.
With Shane. Do you want some of this peach whiskey?
Let's do it.
There's some left in there.
Absolutely.
I'm down for sharing. I just didn't want to mix up your...
No, I'm good.
There's one drink left, so let's share it together. And we're going to go ahead and put your...
What's your favorite toast?
Just to the moment, to just being here and, looking in your eyes and having this conversation.
I'll drink to that.
And just saying, bro, we've just learned something today from each other. So I'm going to put your website and contact info in the description of this podcast. But go ahead and tell us how people can get a hold of you and what's the best way to move forward.
The easiest way is shanemahoney360.com.
Okay.
So Mahoney is spelled like M-A honey.
Okay.
And so on shanemahoney360.com you can really find everything about me. You can book time on my calendar or anything else. If you want to have a conversation, I welcome that, because ultimately, like, I like talking about the philosophy behind what we do, not what we do. Like, what we do is not as consequential as the why behind what we do. And I find that to be one of the most interesting parts of the human experience is, like, we do so many things because of the inertia that came before it, without really understanding why we're even really doing it. Have you ever taken a vacation to the same place twice or more?
I have.
Do you know why you did that?
I wanted to re-experience the same thing, or?
But also because it was a lot less stressful to plan. You knew where to go,
Yeah.
You knew what to have, you knew where you were going to eat, you knew the bartender that was going to fix the drink that you wanted.
Yeah.
Like, it was stressless,
Right.
to be able to create that experience for yourself. But when you put it in the 18 or the 30 summers standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
what did you really do? What was the opportunity cost of what you did by going to repeat a performance that you've already been to?
Missing out on that exploration of a new memory, or of that new place that we might want to go back to again. So that's why we need you in our lives, Shane. And I learned so much today, and I really appreciate that. I knew you were a powerhouse, but I never knew why. And so it's great to...
The why is the most important question.
Absolutely.
How, who, all those other questions are secondary to why. If you know your why, you can actually create the most amazing things, whether that's an experience for you and your kids, or like your business and what you do. But knowing why is the foundation for all of it, in my opinion. Now, other people might have different ideas.
I like it. And now I just get to figure out where.
Well, the nice thing is that it doesn't matter. See, the thing is like, I look at it from the perspective of, if I know who you are, I know what you like, I know what you're into, I can create an experience for you anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter the where, if I know who you are. Because then it's just like, how does this gear of who Jeremy Worley is fit with all these different other gears to be able to create an experience that actually changes your life? And if there's any magic I have, it's just understanding how those gears fit together. It's basically.
You're an engineer. You're a travel engineer, is what you are.
There you go. I guess I ended up an engineer all the same.
Well, a big thank you for listening to the end of our podcast. I know your time is valuable, and I hope you got a few takeaways that are going to help you get a greater return on that time. I know you will. And if you did enjoy it, I'd sure appreciate a share or a comment. Feel free to subscribe for instant access to new episodes and offers. There's also a ton of free content and ways to learn more and engage more at WorleyRealEstateNetwork.com. Until then, we'll continue to bring you recipes for success and real stories from real people who, like you, are living out your divine purpose. And hey, God loves you. No matter what happens, don't give up.